Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Blue Gamer Bluecast morning show. I'm your host Adam Bluetooth, your video game enthusiast and industry analyst, and today I have to adjust my microphone so that I can actually feel like I'm utilizing it properly. But no, for today, the July 8th, 2026, we'll run through the latest gaming news, what I've been playing, etc., etc. What's up, Jam Kellix? Good to see you in there. Good to see you. Yeah. What has the week been like? Are we at Wednesday? I had the Blue Gamer Monday to, again, without the job, it's been a little weird. As I'm, doing tasks throughout the day that are not necessarily, standardized each day. I'm kind of jumping in, see what I can do with different applications, work on some things. It's funny. It's also funny. It's like I saw a total right now of 6 people from my previous job viewing my profile on LinkedIn. It's like, why doesn't anyone reach out to me? Say, hey Adam, how's it going? No, it's weird. It's weird. But because of that, I want to show you guys real quick before we get into what I've been playing. Although this is something I have been playing. The game I've been working on. I showed it off yesterday on the Gundam Explained show. This turned out so much better than I could even imagine. And for instance, this is a photograph I made. It just is tweaked with AI to make it look like they're in space and put little particles around. But these are the robot spirits, Zaku's. Anyway, you click campaign coming soon. So we'll do a skirmish, and then you can choose, Federation or Xeon, map size. We'll just keep everything medium standard. All right. So you start at your capital ship here, and what you could do is build. Just a little bit. You build the ball, which is the unit in Gundam, and by keeping a ball within the ring of a capital ship, it actually gets currency. The idea is they're like picking up scrap, taking it back to the capital ship. Any of these points that have a plus, once you capture them, they actually create a capital ship as well. That allows you to rebuild. And a lot of this is going to be tuned to the length of time it takes to capture, the distance, etc. This is just to get the main mechanics down. And so you can see here I'm just building a bunch of GMs. That's the rally point. We're going to go over here. Let's see. Let me get this capital ship here. And actually, you can you double click to, okay, there we go. And then, but once you're clicking on it, that's where you can then build the units from. So I'm borrowing a lot from Dawn of War, StarCraft, Command & Conquer, basically my favorite RTSs. So yeah, let's move out some more. I want to build some more artillery, actually. And I don't know. And you see how they're kind of in a formation? I'm trying to make it where as you move them, they kind of stay in a formation in some way. Oh, damn. They took me out pretty quick. I cannot wait to get the sound effects done in this. There's something over here. And then I have RX-78 too, so that's Amuro. And he has a buff when he's around other units. The units get a buff. Okay. So this GM. Oh, crap. Okay, good. I want to show that off later. This GM is a darker blue, and that's just to signify the health until I do health bars or whatever. But if you go into an area that was captured by a capital ship, you can see the blue is getting... Oh, I have to go closer. Yeah, there you go. Blue's getting lighter. It's healing. I'm going to build some more of these. So, there's okay, so this, I could do a beam blast across the... oops, didn't even do that. Whenever you have the artillery selected, it allows you to use the superpower up here, and it's just like a mega particle cannon beam. Let's move up a little bit so we can... I need to get more units. Oh, am I... Okay, there we go. let's move out a little bit. I want to show you guys the Mega Particle Cannon. I love it. Because it looks exactly like, here we go, bam, like it would in Gundam. These giant lasers slowly making their way across. Oh yeah, something else to show too. Okay, let me go over here. I want to show you guys how the combat works. So there's ranged, but then you can see the little X's, and that's melee. And basically, when a unit is firing their weapon, there's actually a cooldown. So if their ranged is out and they are within range of melee, they'll switch to melee. Or they'll move in. So I just healed that guy. And I love the explosions. I tried to make them look like... None of these graphics are final. But I'm trying to make it have visual representation. That's why I have the music. Just to kind of make it feel like, okay, we're making a Gundam game. Oh. That Sharzaku, that's not going to go well. I need to get Amuro over here. But yeah, you can, bam, look at that. Oh, I love the, that's something I got to think. The enemy doesn't use, their artillery as much. I got to look that up. Okay, let's make our way up here. I think the main base is here. There we go. Sharzaku again. Amuro, it's your time to shine. Oh, hell yeah. Bam! Oh, look at all that. I love using the Mega Particle Cannon. And here's the thing. It seems like it's overpowered, but really the enemy that I'm fighting should be using it more, so I have to tweak the AI for that. And then, yeah, whenever you capture a point over on the right, the different outposts that you build from. But I want it to be where it's like fast-paced, large groups of units, constant Mega Particle Cannons firing everywhere. It's turning out so much better than I thought. I couldn't believe it. Sup, Steven? Glad you saw that, actually. Did you ever... No, you know what? I know exactly what you're talking about, and I never played it, and I should. Because that does, like, yeah, the hero units had to earn instead of being part of the progress tree, and yeah, there's different ways games do it. Like in Warcraft 3, you have to build a certain building that then allows you to build a hero unit. In like the Command and Conquer games, it's once you've upgraded to a certain thing. So I just have it where it starts out, but I might actually look into being where you don't get the hero unit right away. That might be an interesting way to, because I do think there's some tweaking that's going to be going on for sure. But yeah, oh man, I am having so much fun making that game, even just playing it. It plays like I would like an RTS to play, but a couple things that I'm going to be trying to work on other than graphics is I want it where the matches last a little longer. And so I'm probably going to slow down the movement in the game, the speed to capture things, but I want to add another element that you're managing during that slowdown. So it might just be where it's upgrade style stuff. So it could be just as simple as, okay, as we're building up the army, what can we do specifically with these units? Like maybe make it where they have certain weapons. You can research like the prototype beam rifle, and then you can outfit, like you can click on the GM, and if it's in range of a capital ship, you can change its loadout. That might be the way to go. You know, something else I didn't show too, and that's going to be part of the game is there's this fleet. Let me switch. There's like this fleet screen. Then the idea is as you play the campaign, you would unlock more mobile suits. And then before you, at any time, you can go to the fleet menu and set your starting 6 units. So it could be that you want to have all ball units, so you're immediately getting credits. Or you might have it where it's all, by the time you unlock, I don't know what else I'll be adding, but I'm going to look through MSV to add units, because I want to have a sense of not only are you sitting there playing, you know, fleet battles, Gundam fleet battles, but also a sense of like this progression outside of a typical progression system. More of like like Pokemon, collecting mobile suits and upgrading them, outfitting them with whatever loadout, and then using them in battle. So, man, having a lot of fun making that. But let's go to what I've been playing, and honestly, I think it's gonna be a little boring. Oh, I didn't set it up. Hold on, give me a second. No, that wasn't it. Okay. I just played SD Gundam Operation UC some more yesterday on the Gundam Explain Morning Show. I was playing it a bit. Just it's a fun game, and I like playing it, and also it's for the review that went out on the channel. So Gundam Explained YouTube channel has a review up for SD Gundam Operation UC. It's a game on the Wonder Swan color, which brings me back that time period, late high school, where there were so many cool things coming out in Japan that I wanted to get my hands on, and I really couldn't. One of the things that actually came out stateside around the same time was the Neo Geo Pocket Color. And I mainly went for that because, again, it released stateside, but it had a lot of games I already loved because it was SNK stuff. It had the fighting games, it had Metal Slug, it even had a Sonic game. And that was awesome. But anyway, I'd always see the Wonder Swan and then the Wonder Swan color and be like, man, cool games. We'll never be able to play. But luckily with emulation, I'm able to play these games that I would never have played, or I would have to spend a lot of money on eBay to buy. And a lot of times you don't know what condition they're in, or like when I looked up some of the Wonder Swan colors on eBay, again, price and then screen. And that was something in general that I was researching online was the screen just doesn't look good for games. And that just had to do with the time period and the technology. Whereas playing it here on an emulator is completely clean, clear, looks good. But other than the Gundam aspect, the other part that I really appreciate about SD Gundam Operation UC is that it's able to be a shmup and a beat 'em up at the same time. Now, it doesn't do any of those things in a new revolutionary way, not even exceptionally well, but it does things just as it needs to for a 2-button handheld device. So you have your shoot and you have your super. But what's neat about it is the units all play a bit differently. And I do, as a fan of the double press to dash, yeah, is that what I'm trying to say? Yeah, the dash. I love dash mechanics in 2D games. And so the beat 'em up portions, when you're certain units, you could double tap to dash. Or I noticed with like the later units, you just press once and it like dashes forward pretty fast. So I love it when these games that are kind of based on older systems and very simple are able to actually add little layers and elements of mechanics as you're playing. Yeah, because another thing, for instance, is even though there's only one button to shoot, you can hold it down to charge up and shoot a blast, or you can charge it up even more and it changes the type of weapon it shoots. And that's actually not dissimilar from the Gundam. I want to say it's called let me look, because I was playing it. It's either Gundam 1 Year War or Gundam UC Climax. Man, how long ago was that? But it's basically where as you're, it's probably below. Oh man, all the games I've been playing. But anyway, it's more of a rail shooter. It's like a Star Fox, but when you hold down, you shoot your beam rifle, you hold down the button, it turns into a different type of beam blast, and then if you hold it down, it's more a rocket. So I always find it interesting when you can take a simple game, simple mechanics, but add layers to them. And then one last thing to add on this Operation UC, what I find interesting is it's really cool how retro achievements, and this is the community, are going in adding achievements for this game. There's 139 achievements, which is insane. And I only have one, and that was because I completed the campaign. But that was even only the 0079 campaign. There's a Zeta and Double Zeta campaign that I played, but haven't beat. But I think so we can actually click in on this and it will show what it's representing. Survival mode. All of these are survival mode with the different mobile suits that you can unlock. So there must be, like 139 potentially different mobile suits. There's probably pilot, Sazabi, and complete the campaign scenario. No game over, no continue. Damn. Reset emulator, select different mode once to retry. Interesting. This is cool. This is someone that really liked the game and wanted to build out a really cool. And so this is where having a Wonder Swan color makes sense. Where you might one day spend the time, playing through as the Jagan and beating it, which makes me want to do that because I'm sure each one of these played differently. Barzam, Marisai, GM Sniper, the bologna sandwich. I mean, there's so many mobile suits. That's crazy. Anyway, check that out. That's a lot of fun. Did I do anything? Did I play? I think I was playing Dead or Alive last round on stream Monday. I mean, that's how little I've been actually playing games. I mean, I think a lot of it has been, I'm working on stuff, applying to jobs, building stuff with AI, doing whatever, working on videos. But one thing, the conversation that is still occurring that is very interesting, and I don't know where it's going to go, is people being mad at Sony about, PlayStation or Sony announcing, the physical stuff. And it's just, there's a lot of it that is, I don't know how to explain how I feel. There's the surface level of I've already made peace with physical that I realize I don't need to collect games to enjoy them, but I will collect games that I like. Like I buy the Castlevania games, the Xenoblade games. Yeah, I'll get a physical game here and there, but I actually don't care if something is physical or not. I mean, but that's just one layer, and that's a very subjective layer because I think it's completely valid for someone to be, no, I like to have it physically. I collect it. But how did we get here? This is where some of me feels like I am validated in a weird way. And this is a long time going. And I might have already talked about this on here. And I was actually talking to my brother about this yesterday because it's all coming back. I remember when the PlayStation was first announced. When I first found out about the PlayStation, I was like 12, maybe. And I was deep into gaming at that time, maybe 13. Yeah, I had to have been older. And I just remember the first thought was PlayStation? That's a dumb name for a video game console. PlayStation. But that doesn't mean anything, right? So I'm like, but that doesn't mean anything. But no, I even remember the way it was being advertised and everything. I'm like, okay, this is like with the CD-ROM, the way they were. Before that, CD-ROMs were more add-ons. And then where CD-ROM based systems failed was like CDI and 3DO, and the stuff on there was just kind of like mid. And so it was like, well, they're trying to push the technology, not necessarily make it about the games. But that's exactly what Sony was doing when they came up with the PlayStation, because they tried to use Nintendo to get the CD-ROM in everyone's home. And Nintendo didn't agree with their thing, so they did it themselves, created the PlayStation. And then so you look at the games that were announced for it, or the launch games around that time. And nothing stood out as being like incredible, but it was neat to see in 3D these games coming out. And I remember the only one I liked playing, and it was only because my brother, Too Extreme. It was only because my brother actually had the PlayStation. I didn't buy PlayStation. And he's an older half-brother that actually didn't live with me, so he lived with his mom. He would get consoles too, got a PlayStation. I was always getting the consoles. I mean, I even had the Super Nintendo, Sega CD, 32X, Genesis, all that stuff, and then I went to the N64. I didn't go with PlayStation. I almost went with Saturn, too. We even rented a Saturn to check it out, and we rented Bug, and it was just, with the N64, I felt like I was good. But anyway, my brother would bring the PlayStation, and I remember I liked playing Too Extreme. But I remember telling myself as I'm playing Too Extreme, I'm like, this is a very mainstream game. This Too Extreme, it's like not a gamey game. This is just more of a, I don't know, but I had fun playing it, but I wasn't playing it like I was playing games on my Super Nintendo or my Genesis. I was playing Too Extreme as some pastime sports thingy. So it had always been in my head that the PlayStation was a sort of mainstream console. But I never, at that time, I wasn't correlating CD-ROM in terms of business. I was correlating it with, oh, CDI and 3DO did bad, and that was CD-ROM based. And then N64 went cartridges, so it almost seemed like, well, it seems like, Nintendo doing this for a while, cartridges are probably the best idea. But anyway, as just time has went with Sony, or PlayStation, I've always had this sort of bias, this internal bias toward PlayStation, only because I felt like they were just trying to be cool. I ended up buying a PlayStation, playing Symphony of the Night, and loved it. And I was like, yeah, best game on there, which originally was being made on the 32X. So just an example of, it's not that it was the platform, it was just the money and the time where to, put all that. And then I remember buying a PlayStation 2 shortly after it came out. I got the Xbox first because they came out around the same time, kind of. And then I got the PlayStation, and I mainly bought a PlayStation because, see, here's the thing. The Dreamcast came out, and Dreamcast continued kind of Sega's legacy of trying to bring arcade games home. And that was kind of if you really think about what companies are trying, like Nintendo is trying to make entertainment toy products. It's really about the toyetic nature. With Sega, they were really about bringing the arcade experience home. So when the Dreamcast came out, it did exactly that, and I loved it. But Guilty Gear X, favorite game of mine, was only being released on, at that time, I think, not on Dream, it was on PS2, a new release. Yeah, Guilty Gear X specifically. So I remember buying a PS2 to play that. And then other cool games would come out on PS2. Gradius 5 is one of my favorite games on PS2. And what's interesting is, a lot of the Gundam games came out. And so, like, by me wanting to shy away from the Sony ecosystem at that time, there was games I would have missed out on, and I did miss out on that. I, could have been, I did play that Gundam game on Dreamcast and loved it. So I guess, and then you can look at, well, yeah, the Xbox came out, and that's kind of like the same thing that Sony was doing. And actually, to a degree, yes, but almost for different reasons. So for Sony, they were really good at maximizing the consumer electronic potential to make money off of whatever that is they're selling. Microsoft was already doing fine. But they just saw that Sony was getting this box in people's living rooms. And they wanted to be able to, because then there was still a disconnect between the home entertainment, the PC, and the console, completely different things. Another thing I totally forgot to bring up is, as I'm playing these console games in the 90s, I'm also playing PC games. Even more of a reason, I guess, I didn't jump to PlayStation, because of the CD-ROM based games on a PlayStation were nothing compared to the games I was playing on PC. So again, there was more and more reasons where, to me, unknowingly why, I had this bias against PlayStation. So Xbox comes out. What they do is it comes with a modem. And or a network adapter. And what this allowed was Microsoft to map IP addresses around the world, the country, mainly country first, but the world. And what this actually helps is with data centers and data congestion and being able to offload data. It allowed them to build a map. So Microsoft was less in it about making money. Like, in the end, this helped them make money, but it was just a tool. For them, creating a console was a tool. So just like we see with the Xbox mismanagement today, they were so about thinking, oh, let's do things for gamers, that there would be bloat. There would be, for instance, trying to make the coolest console ever with the 360, and you get the red ring of death. And they were willing to fix all that, but that was, them pushing. And so to kind of go back for a second with the original Xbox, you have that released with 4 control ports, continuing the Nintendo and Sega legacy. It had a built-in modem continuing the Sega legacy. It also pretty much went the direction of the controller based on the Sega legacy. The Dreamcast did the ABXY with the triggers in a very specific way. And that's exactly what the Xbox controller was, the triggers and the ABXY. It wasn't, there's a north, south, east, west button faces on a PlayStation controller, but they also had more buttons on the shoulders than they had the triggers. And just the shape of the controller, like I feel Microsoft, the people that were working under Xbox, understood that lane of game history of the Nintendos, the Sega, whereas PlayStation was more about a consumer electronics brand, and let's see what IPs we can get that we can sell as games on here. And where's I mean, if we were to continue down this path, we then even saw with the PS2, because it could play DVDs. That's almost like the issue that makes it too big. It makes it bigger than it is to put gaming into this corporate landscape of bottom line and making money. It was completely different. That's why, then Dreamcast died out, because Dreamcast was, or Sega Dreamcast wasn't trying to maximize like being a consumer electronics brand. They were bringing the arcade scene home, and they were doing a good job. But once you get a company like Sony with the PlayStation using all their corporate tactics, they pretty much just destroyed Sega. And I'm that's another thing I'm disappointed. That's another reason why I have a bias with PlayStation. It just kept continuing. When the PS3 came out, it was very interesting because it launched super expensive. It was doing the backwards compatibility because the games initially on the PS3 weren't good. It's just over time the PS3 ended up getting good games because they lost that generation against the 360. And you can kind of see within these companies when they're like, okay, we need to be more, player friendly. Man, I'm going all over the place with this. Because what was interesting, again, with the Xbox coming out with the 4 control ports, the modem to map IP addresses, the hard drive, okay? Xbox was putting in as many player conveniences as possible. Instead of focusing on how to maximize profit, let's maximize player convenience. And that led to the Xbox Live, that led to the digital downloads, the arcade, which people could complain that is what kind of led to where we are. And to a degree, yes, Xbox is definitely responsible for a lot of what's been going on. But Xbox always did it at an angle of convenience, whereas, Sony's always been trying to maximize whatever they can do, to the point to where, and so this is the other thing. It's like the PlayStation 2 DVD thing is very similar to like Grand Theft Auto, because Sony relied on the DVD, the CD, the DVD to push. Right now, Sony's having to rely on Grand Theft Auto, because Grand Theft Auto is what makes them money. People buying Grand Theft Auto on PlayStation and playing GTA Online. So you get a company like Rockstar with Grand Theft Auto that is a, what do you call it? It's an out-of-place artifact of gaming. It's how do I explain? It's hard to do with movies and music nowadays, because there's so much movies and so much. It's like MCU stuff. Is that what I'm trying to say? It's like the popular thing. Okay, I lost my train of thought. Let me go back to the blah blah. Yeah, okay, yeah, the digital, because I don't want to leave out Xbox, because Xbox kind of brought with the digital, the online, then it became paying for online passes, that whole thing, and that's definitely not good. But amongst all that, Microsoft was constantly doing what they could to preserve games, where Sony wasn't, where they were backing out of backwards compatibility. Microsoft was doing everything they can to have old games available digitally. Actually, let me go to chat, because I could just go on forever about this. I'm more angry about Xbox laying off thousands of workers while applying for thousands of H-1Bs and chuds acting like it's a big one for gaming. Well, I will say, in my opinion, Xbox made the mistake of the bloat, and that's what I was getting at before. They're like, oh, let's make what's convenient for gamers. Let's give them the games they want. Let's just hire any company. And so because of that, then they're over hiring. And the studios that were to be making these games weren't delivering. They were taking their time getting a game out there because Microsoft was letting them. So Microsoft had mismanaged all these companies to where they produced, very little. But at the same time, it's pretty crazy that they're not canceling any of the games. So all of those games where they did layoffs around, those games are still in production, and the ones that were announced, and they still have people working on them. So that's pretty good. Um, the other thing about the H-1Bs, that's very interesting because there's a big issue where there's a lot of roles in tech nowadays that do require proficiency in AI tools, and a lot of Americans are pushing back on that. So it's, and I remember reading a study about this. It's more lucrative. Well, not actually, lucrative is not the word. Because it's almost the opposite. What was it that it's hard for American companies to find candidates because they're so against AI. They're seeing AI proficiency with people in other countries. And it makes sense because I think in Germany, is it, or some countries in Europe, AI is part of school curriculum at an early age. And talking to my kids, they don't use it at school and they're told not to. So there's not even a thing to get kids up on that stuff. So again, where those people weren't even part of the problem. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like these people are awesome that are working on these games that they're like, wow, Microsoft's throwing all this money at us to make these games, work on these games, and then but I mean the same thing happened with Sony. Sony bought Bungie for how much? And then they had a huge layoff. They completely shut down Blue Point Games. So whereas Xbox isn't shutting down any studios, Sony shut down Blue Point Games, which is insane. And so that's why when people were like, hey, this is your time, Microsoft, come in and swoop them up. No. And okay, so to kind of back up for a second, the reason we are where we are today with both of these companies in failure states is because of Sony dragging the games industry into the mainstream because they wanted to sell the CD-ROM format. And then Xbox it's like Xbox is too big for its own good to provide player convenience because it's not sustainable. I think that's what I'm trying to get at with that. Microsoft has good intentions, but they're bad at it. Sony has business intentions, and really it's only good or bad if depending on where you sit. Because to me, as much as I'm sitting here kind of talking crap about Sony and PlayStation, at the end of the day, I can still play any game I want. Sony can stay around as much as they want. I don't care. Or PlayStation could be gone tomorrow, and I don't really care, because I don't think we should be holding a corporation like Sony to be the arbiter of gaming. I don't think we should rely on Sony or even Microsoft to be the ones that tell us where gaming is going. It should always be from a smaller group. I think Saber Interactive is definitely one to watch for. Tim Sweeney, that was really with id Software, right? Am I mixing up people? Let me look that up real quick. No, Tim Saber Interactive. Let me Tim Willits. Tim Willits is who I'm talking about. Very sharp guy. Because I think let me share that. Because I think he understands the sort of, how do you make something seem AAA without having a AAA budget? In fact, I would, and here's how a company like Sony or Microsoft should go about it, is you don't acquire the company, but go to Saber Interactive and say, like, hey, can you make us a Halo? Which I want to say they've worked on Halo before. Yeah. Saber then assisted in 2014. Okay, so, wow, that's kind of funny how that actually was a thing. So, and I think that's how it should work. They should be, it reminds me of like on the Super Nintendo and the Genesis, remember there would be 2 different Aladdin games, 2 different design philosophies, 2 different ways to go about those games, different graphics, different gameplay styles. One wouldn't be worse than the other, in my opinion. They were both different for their own ways, and I think that's really cool. And I guess where do I want to end all of this that I was talking about? Because I felt like I talked about a lot, and a lot of it is my opinion, but not necessarily is reality in some ways. Just growing up playing games, PlayStation always seemed inauthentic to me. So I feel like what's going on with PlayStation right now, to me, doesn't shock me. And it's more of like, I mean, yeah, they were in it from as a business standpoint from the beginning, which is normal. That's what businesses do. But they don't have that spark that Nintendo has. That, in my opinion, even Microsoft has. Even though, again, Microsoft does a lot of bad, but I feel like Microsoft tries. They're just bad at it. Whereas Sony's just strictly business. It's like, oh, is this cool for a gamer? Doesn't matter. What is the business end of it, you know? And we should look to like Saber Embracer Group is the name of the company that Saber's under. We should look at like Evercade. You know, they're releasing physical games on handhelds and they have a home console. We should look at, and it's funny because I think there's a lot of indie games or indie companies we could look at, but then the other argument here is the physical. It's like there is no outcome where physical is center stage anymore. So, well, guys, I think I'm done ranting for now. I mean, no, there was some really cool chat. I got to look into this. GTA 6. Oh, wait, Ed Zitron called it. Big Tech has no new big hyperscale ideas. No stuff. Yeah, that's exactly. We've got to a place where we've maximized the technology that could be available at a consumer level, and now it's like bleeding it dry. And things have plateaued exactly. GTA 6 heralding the end of the gaming world. Quick, stop it from releasing. Yeah, that was the other thing. I didn't fully extrapolate on that, but GTA 6 is an outlier, and a lot of video game companies, publishers, and even public to a degree then expects what GTA 6 is to represent the rest of the gaming industry, and it doesn't. And that's the other reason for a lot of these failures. I mean, just think of how many people are not releasing, companies are not releasing games around the November because of GTA 6. Hopefully, AI will enable a true decentralization of the industry and allow more game companies to rise up instead of letting the big three and Steam call the shots. That is exactly a good framing. And I totally agree with this. And it's not AI slop. It's like what I just showed at the beginning of the stream, where I'm actually now able to make something that doesn't exist. And that's amazing. Kickstarter and Indiegogo remain viable options for passionate devs to fundraise for AAA level games that aren't reduced to mass market appeal. Another great example, the whole crowdsourcing. That is exactly right. That's another example of the audience meeting that creator in the middle to be like, yes, let's help put this together. These mass acquisitions and shutdowns of third-party studios over the past decade and a half just to hoard IPs finally catching up to them. Yeah, that's as cool as it seemed for Microsoft to buy up all these IPs. I think there's that unknown the unknown long term, because shortly after that happened, we had COVID in the AI bubble, which completely changed everything. You wonder if none of that stuff happened, if things would be different. But I think it has to happen. I think Xbox and PlayStation need to get knocked down sometimes in order to rise up better, like a phoenix from the ashes. Isn't that like a whole thing? Anyway. All right, guys, I'm going to head out. That was a lot of fun talking about this. I really had fun. Anyway, I'm going to be applying for jobs, looking at working on the game. But until next time, guys, have a good one. We'll talk later.